Imagine a single person controlling the cars on your street, the internet beaming down from space, the rockets carrying astronauts to orbit.
If he loses, man, what?
If he loses him.
It does seem that way.
The chatbot answering your questions, and the robot that might one day fold your laundry. That's not science fiction. That's One Man's Thursday. And the strangest part is, most people still think of him as just the Tesla guy. Elon Musk isn't building a company anymore. He's building an ecosystem, a web of businesses so interconnected that pulling on one thread moves all the others. And as absurd as it sounds, that web is now inching toward a valuation no human being in history has ever reached. $1 trillion, held by a single individual. So how does a man who once slept on the factory floor at Tesla, who nearly went bankrupt twice in the same year, end up standing at the edge of becoming the first trillionaire on Earth? The answer isn't luck, it's architecture. And to understand it, you have to stop looking at his companies one at a time. Let's start with the one everyone knows. Tesla didn't just build electric cars, it built the emotional case for an entire industry pivot. But here's what most people miss. Tesla was never really a car company. It was a data company wearing a car company's paint job. Every mile driven by a Tesla feeds a neural network that's quietly being trained to solve full self-driving. And full self-driving isn't just a car feature. It's the same underlying technology. Musk wants to put inside a humanoid robot called Optimus, which brings us to the part of the story that sounds like it was ripped from a Silicon Valley pitch deck nobody would believe. Optimus, the robot, is supposed to use the same vision-based AI stack that powers Tesla's cars. Musk has claimed that Optimus alone could eventually be worth more than every other part of Tesla combined. Whether or not that happens, the strategy reveals something important. He's not selling one product. He's selling one brain repackaged into different bodies. A car is a robot that drives. Optimus is a robot that walks. Same software DNA, different shell, but here's where everything changed. In 2023, Musk quietly built a separate company most people ignored at first, xAI. On the surface, it looked like a late entry into the AI race, chasing OpenAI and Google. But xAI wasn't just another chatbot company. It was the missing piece that connected everything else. The driving data from Tesla, the satellite infrastructure from Starlink, the computing power from a growing empire of data centers. xAI became the brain that could eventually sit on top of all of it, and this is where the billion-dollar strategy becomes even more fascinating. Most billionaires build one great company and defend it for life. Musk builds infrastructure layers, the boring, unglamorous plumbing that every other business eventually needs. SpaceX didn't just build rockets, it built the cheapest way to get a payload into orbit in human history through reusable boosters that competitors still haven't matched. That single innovation didn't just make SpaceX valuable, it made Starlink possible. Starlink in turn is arguably the most quietly profitable part of the entire empire. While SpaceX's rocket division burns cash on ambitious Mars dreams and next-generation vehicles, Starlink has become a real recurring revenue machine, delivering internet to remote regions, ships, militaries, and now reportedly airlines. Some analysts believe Starlink alone could eventually be worth more than the rest of SpaceX combined. Which means the rocket company everyone talks about might actually be a satellite internet company that happens to also launch rockets. Now stack the boring company on top of that. It's easy to dismiss it as a novelty, a man who got annoyed sitting in Los Angeles traffic and decided to dig tunnels. But look closer, and it's a testbed for autonomous, high-speed underground transit that, if it ever scales, could tie directly into the same self-driving software running Tesla's fleet. Even the parts of Musk's empire that look like side projects tend to quietly reinforce the core. Then there's X, formerly Twitter, the acquisition that made Wall Street question his judgment more than any other move he's made. Musk paid an enormous premium for a platform that was hemorrhaging advertisers and reportedly losing value by the day. But if you look at what happened next, the picture gets clearer. X became the training ground and deployment surface for Grok, xAI's chatbot, built directly into the platform's feed. Suddenly, a failing social media company was actually alive, constantly updating fire hose of real-time human data feeding an AI model. What looked like an ego purchase may have been the missing ingredient xAI needed to compete with companies that had a multi-year head start. And then there's the one that unsettles people the most, Neuralink. Brain-computer interfaces sound like the plot of a dystopian film, but the company has already implanted devices in human patients who've used them to control computers with thought alone. Whatever you think about the ethics, Neuralink represents the final layer of the ecosystem, not just machines that think like humans, but a potential bridge between human thought and machine intelligence itself. Put it all together and you start to see it. Tesla generates data and cash flow. SpaceX generates launch capability and orbital infrastructure. Starlink generates connectivity and recurring revenue. xAI generates the intelligence layer. X generates real-time human data and distribution. Optimus generates the physical embodiment. Neuralink generates the long-term bet on merging human and machine cognition. None of these companies are really separate. They're organs in the same body, but no empire this large gets built without enormous risk, and Musk's is no exception. Tesla's stock has been wildly volatile, swinging on sentiment as much as earnings, and competition from Chinese automakers has intensified faster than almost anyone predicted a few years ago. SpaceX, despite its dominance in launches, has burned through billions of dollars developing its next-generation rocket systems, with some years posting steep losses even as its valuation climbs. Regulatory scrutiny follows him everywhere, from safety investigations into Tesla's driver assistance systems, to environmental concerns over Starlink's satellite constellation crowding low Earth orbit, to lawsuits and controversies tied to his time inside the US government during the Trump administration, where he briefly led efforts to slash federal spending before a public falling out with the president that sent Tesla shares tumbling within days. That relationship, in fact, might be the single biggest hidden risk in the entire empire. A meaningful portion of Musk's valuation isn't just built on innovation, it's built on political access. Government contracts with NASA and the Department of Defense have poured billions into SpaceX. Regulatory approvals have opened doors for Starlink around the world. And when that political wind shifts, as it did during his public clash with Trump, the market punishes him almost instantly. It's a reminder that empires built partly on influence are only as stable as the relationships behind them. There's also the matter of how this wealth is even measured. Almost none of Musk's fortune sits in a bank account. It exists as shares in companies, some public, some still private, and notoriously difficult to value accurately. SpaceX and xAI aren't traded on public markets the way Tesla is, which means their sky-high valuations are often based on private funding rounds and investor enthusiasm rather than audited profits. It's paper wealth, tied to belief as much as balance sheets. If confidence in the story cracks, the number on paper can shrink just as fast as it grew, and yet, even accounting for all of that, the trajectory is hard to ignore. Analysts tracking Musk's combined stakes across Tesla, SpaceX, xAI, and his other ventures have watched his net worth climb into the hundreds of billions, occasionally brushing up against the $1 trillion mark depending on how aggressively private companies like SpaceX and xAI are valued in any given moment. Every new SpaceX funding round, every Tesla earnings call, every headline about Optimus or Grok moves that number, sometimes by tens of billions of dollars in a single day. So will he actually get there? Will Elon Musk become the first true trillionaire in human history? The technology is real. The infrastructure is already built. The empire, unlike almost anything that's come before it, doesn't rely on one bet. It relies on a dozen bets, all quietly reinforcing each other. But empires built this fast on this much leverage, this much political entanglement, and this much unproven promise have a way of testing the people who build them. The question isn't really whether the number hits 13 digits. It's whether, when it does, anyone will still be able to tell where Elon Musk's genius ends and the myth around him begins.